got the blue skies there, lovely Barcelona.
Yeah, I think. I think you are looking at the reflection of the. I'm looking straight at the sky, and you can see the reflection, in the glass behind me. So you get just a sense of what it's like. It's going to be incredibly hot and sticky today. But
what sort of temperature have you got?
I think we're going to be in the mid. Low 30s. It'll be low 30s. But Barcelona doesn't ever get terribly hot, but it gets very sticky, very humid.
Yes. We were speaking. There's a solicitor we do quite a bit of work with him. He's in Cordoba, and it was exactly 30 degrees difference between Belfast and there. It was 12 degrees here and 42 in Cordoba. It was brutal.
Yeah.
So how are you? Good form?
Down there in the Andalusia, in Cordoba, Seville. I mean, that's where they hit the records. You know, record-breaking highs for Spain. It's very it's unpleasant. You know, down there.
We've been before, and you go up there suited and booted to meet banks and everything else. It is definitely for Brits. It's hard work.
Yeah, sweating. Work. You're like drenched with sweat in a suit.
Absolutely, and it's just not nice. I went up there once and I didn't realise we were supposed to be having a Nelly Serious meeting. I said, "Look, how hot is it up there?" And he said, "It's about 40 odd degrees." I said, "Well, I'm coming up in shorts and flip flops." I said, "I'm just not built for this." And got there, and he forgot to tell me that there was a director from Sabadell coming through to see us as well. So it was a bit of an awkward one. Yeah. How's business?
Absolutely. Well, it's really difficult to say, Terry. I mean. You know, much of my time lately has been taken up with personal with dealing with, you know, my father-in-law's passing and my wife's sickness and children locked at home, children cooped up at home and not instead of at school. You know, I haven't had time really to develop business. It's just, you know, I mean, keeping things ticking along, but not developing business. But now, of course, we're going into August and stuff. It's all going to slow down. But my feeling is that, and I'm lucky in a way because, you know, my website appeals to people who want to buy, owners, and people who want to sell, and people in the business as well. I'm not like just an agent looking for buyers, and otherwise you're doomed. No, I've got like a nicely diversified potential. Well, my audience is diversified in that respect. I know I have lots of people who are owners and people who want to sell, and you know, so they're in the different times of the cycle. They can be offered different services rather than just like you either got buyers or you're doomed. You know, you're finished. And I think there will be a lot of. I mean, it's really difficult. I don't know if you have what your opinion is, but it's really difficult to get a handle on what this COVID crisis is, how it's going to play out. You know, is it going to be a V-shaped recovery? Is it? I mean, I'm assuming there's loads of distress out there. People who are
a huge amount. I'll give you an analogy. When there was in about 2014, I was up near the Polaris World carry on up there, the golf courses, and a lady solicitor up there from Vera, she was explaining to me. She said. And I think it's the same situation as we're in at the moment. And that is, you know, when you have a dream and you fall, okay, to start with, you don't make a noise. And then as you get about halfway down, you scream and then you wake up. She said, we're not screaming yet. And I think it's not to be prophets of doom, but it's where people are. And that's why if we sort of kick off this quite formally, the reason we're quite keen with our association with you is you're not to blow smoke here, but you're nearly the definitive voice here. Your approach to reading data is very, very strategic. I know you have lots of different sort of hats, if you like. You know, got the investment market and everything else in your report. And it's trying to take an overall perspective, which is why we say we enjoy our association with you, sort of limited as it is at the moment. So tell us a bit more, Mark, about you. So I picked up on you the first time in the Sunday Times. I think it was a commentary on your part when you were doing a bit with the Sunday Times. So in terms of your plotted history, as it were. Right.
Well, I was after I left a business school here in Barcelona. It was 2000, and the Spanish property boom was just revving up. and it carried on revving and over revving until 2008. And I, having been prior to my MBA in the Cuban cigar business, I was casting around for something to do in Spain and a change of direction. I suspected that maybe tobacco had its days were numbers. I'm not sure I was right about that.
Not Cuban side.
The property industry in Spain seemed to be, I don't know, I just sort of fell into it. I got asked to work on a project which was involved in as a consultant, it's like MBA consulting, work for a startup, and then I stayed on, and I got sort of sucked into the Spanish property business with a view to, specifically the segment of foreign buyers. I was selling Spanish property to foreign investors. At the time, it was predominantly, well, it was almost all Northern Europeans buying second homes. The market's diversified since then. You get things like now the golden visa, which wasn't in existence back then. But at the time, it was really just people, either Brits and Germans and Belgians and the Northern Europeans looking to either retire to Spain or to buy a holiday home. And I started working in the sector. And one of the first things I saw was that there was no source of information that had any credibility. It was all sales information. It's like the only people providing any information on the market and on the process of purchasing and the conveyancing process in Spain were people in the business who were trying to sell. So there was no credibility or independence surrounding that kind of information sources. And I thought that was an obvious place to start. So I set off on my own with this website, Spanish Property Insight, with the goal of trying to offer people information and unbiased information so that they could make informed decisions over what are essentially rather big investment decisions. When buying or selling a second home or any property anywhere is one of the biggest financial commitments or decisions many people make in their lifetimes. So that was what brought me into this niche of sort of property information. And in the course of that, I started writing for the Sunday Times. I'd had a column for the Sunday Times called the Spanish Property Doctor column, which I wrote for about 3 or 4 years until the crisis really struck, and the Sunday Times home section went from I don't know how many pages, or 100 pages to
it's doing exactly the same now. You're just starting to see, in the publications like the Sunday Times. It's a bit like yesterday I was reading the business section, and the business adverts gone from a full page down to a corner telling you can rent a couple of properties in France. It's a huge change, but it's that backdrop, Mark, isn't it? It's saying what you experienced there, because if you use it by any other measure in today's world, everything back then, going back to the pretty savage sales environment back in the day, everybody with a reason was missold. If you bought in that range and you bought from a bespoke development and everything else, unfortunately, people will never win those claims of being missold things. And it's trying to recalibrate their expectations, if you like. And that's why I think it's important with the work you do in terms of where the market goes, because nobody trying to value anything. And now, unfortunately, with the COVID-19 thing, it's not going to be great. That's for sure. It's not going to be a bed of roses. I think estate agents, which we'll come onto in a while, they're not going to be selling anything this year. You obviously not got the people looking, not even coming to the country, let alone thinking about buying. So with the COVID-19 effects, and we've touched on it on a personal note, you've suffered, you contracted COVID-19, was that right?
That's right. Yeah, I had a personal fight with this damned virus, and I have to say, it was, and my wife is in one of the high risk groups because she's on heavy medication for autoimmune issues, and so I was very worried about to begin with. I mean, when it started becoming, and this crisis exploded out of nowhere, it seemed. I mean,
absolutely, that's the incredible thing.
Yeah. I mean, my eye wasn't on the ball. I wasn't looking at what's going on in Wuhan and what's going on in Rome because I had many other pressing concerns and demands on my attention closer to home. And then all of a sudden, we went from a Thursday, a Friday, the kids were sent home early, and that was it. We were all of a sudden locked up at home.
Yeah, and it was quite severe on the children, wasn't it? Though, because they were in complete lockdown. The children in Spain.
Yeah, we had. I mean, the kids were in basically for the best part of 2 months. I have a 7-year-old and a 12-year-old, and we were locked in a flat in Barcelona.
Yeah.
And I could take them up onto the roofs, onto the roof of the building for like a run around for 20 minutes a day or something. But that really didn't amount to much. But that meant that, and of course the time stress is there of having to do homeschooling. I mean, we're lucky. My children are at a school where they sent us lots and lots of work.
Mm-hmm.
Right from the Monday after the lockdown began, we started getting a full day's work delivered online. But of course, you can't leave a 7-year-old to do the full day's work. You have to hold her hand and guide her through all the maths and all the different classes. So that took up an incredible amount of time.
You mentioned there briefly when you were saying the effect. Nobody could have predicted this. Although I did read some at the weekend. There was the guys at I think it's a Massachusetts Institute helped develop a process that if essentially around smallpox, and they did call this, and they've got another couple of things. I think this is going to be with us for a long time. I don't think it's going to be until they can get to that vaccine, which at the earliest is 9 months away.
Having had the virus, I can speak with some personal experience. I'm one of the few, everyone in my building had it, but beyond that, you rarely come across people who knowingly have had it. But I think that a lot of people have had it without even knowing they had it.
Yes.
It's a very mysterious bug. In my case, it manhandled me. I was quite badly treated, as in I felt terrible for 2 weeks.
Yes.
I never felt in any danger of having out of breath I never felt scared of beyond just feeling rubbish for 2 weeks, and then it cleared up and went away without any lasting consequences. But I could see how it felt like something completely novel that I've never felt that sick in my life for so long.
Yes.
And so it's not nice, but I don't know, now that the lockdown's over, it's very difficult to come to a conclusion because you get so many conflicting sources of information, which each seems to be credible in their own right. There's the Bristol University study, which shows that the virus had already peaked before the lockdown even started. There's the famous stuff from Imperial, which predicts that we're all going to die. Unless we're all, stay inside and never go out. And I don't know. I don't really know how you deal with this, but I think it's going to be around until there's the famous herd immunity has been established.
Absolutely.
It's just going to be out there for this foreseeable
future. And I see there are a couple of spikes. We're getting a couple of spikes here in the UK, but I see there are a couple of spikes. There's one just outside Barcelona. I think there's one in Galicia as well. They're talking of.
Yeah, we got in Lleida and Galicia, and they're doing local lockdowns now, but it's like whack-a-mole, isn't it? There's a big surge, and they try and knock it out, and then it comes up somewhere else.
I think it's quite good because obviously, there's lots of criticism about how governments, etc., dealt with it. Obviously, it's totally much abused phrase, totally unprecedented. But the ability now to pinpoint an error. There's one in Leicester here in the UK, and apparently this morning there's one in Merthyr Tydfil, but they're cutting it straight down if they can. But the effect, you have obviously the disease and debilitating. I'm sorry to hear how you struggled, but it's the effect of what it's going to do to the economy and also health, not just money, it's about the health as well. But in terms of nobody could have seen anything of the consequences or future down the track. What we're finding in business terms is it's almost like a ready reckoner, if you like, people having to take stock of everything. So in terms of what we do, and to a degree we deal with you at EU Property Solutions, is where people are going, I tell you what, this is alive now. I need to get my act together here and sort out things. And this is where, again, we're finding it in business. The last 2 weeks, some of the phones are pretty, because we do a lot of debt here in the UK. Suddenly people are coming out of the cave, if you like, into the bright lights and seeing the issues before them and starting to do things. So in terms of that, I say that I dropped you a note the other day on this just to give you a little bit of a heads up. But there are, to our mind, there are almost like three markets in Spain. You have obviously the Spanish market, the Spanish resident market. You have the new build market, which was the second wave, which is getting a bit of traction on decent, well-built properties. And what we refer to a lot is that I think it's a lot of legacy pre-2008 style properties, which are the real dog's dinner properties, and that's unfortunately where we're focused. How is I know it's very early days, but how is the local market in Spain? Is that just shut down for now, or is that?
Well, we're coming back to that sort of, it's a bad dream. You're falling, and you're not screaming yet. I mean, it's Barcelona. It looks like around me. Just there's sort of on the one hand, there's the macro debt figures you see, and on the other hand there's what you see around you on the street, and it looks like everything's sort of like surged back to quite an in terms of traffic and people around. It looks like activities returned quite fast here in Barcelona, and that's encouraging for and talking to agents who work in the local market. They've shown me their graphs of their sales of their commercial activity, I should say. With sort of inquiries, visits, sales, and there's been quite a good rebound. I mean, early on in terms of inquiries, and then in terms of visits and sales subsequently once the lockdown was eased. But that's a largely driven by local demand, because foreigners can't get here. It's still difficult. I mean, things are changing now gradually, but it's still difficult to come to Spain. Although now you can enter the country without quarantine, and whether you can go back to wherever you came from depends on the local situation there. I don't know if in the UK they still have the quarantine.
No, literally. No, they were looking at the air bridges and all that sort of carry on, but then the different places, Scotland decided to do that. Scotland, Northern Ireland and Wales decided to change it slightly. So Boris Johnson's decided that away you go. So you can't go to the States or Brazil, Russia or Iran, I think, but the rest of the world is more or less open for visits. Right, in fact, we booked a bit of a holiday, but also business in the latter part of August. So touch wood, that's going to be okay.
Where are you going to?
We're going down to Malaga. And then we're
choice. Very sensible choice, Terry, I have to say.
Into Cordoba. It was the first time I've been told it's good sensible, but thank you for that. Yeah. But in terms of that 2008, it's still the old legacy stuff. We were talking to a bank the other day, and two banks we've been speaking to, Santander at quite a senior level, up at Sabadell at board level. And their great fear is the demographic of their mortgage book as well. The more, the 60 plus sort of mortgage holders. If you bought 2008, you're in all likelihood you're 60 plus. And they've real concerns there, and have also got their knickers in the twist about Brexit a lot as well. They've got it in their head that once Britain claims its independence, whatever you want to call it, their fear is about the attitude to their properties in Spain, and we refer to it as the B word, Brexit. But right. It's are
they worried about sort of jingle mail, people just walking away from their properties?
Yeah. That and a change in attitude. We're here. As you know, and I think you do it to a degree. You're trying to cover that gap between the little Brits and the Spanish guys, looking at the Brits as everyone's untrusting of one another, and our role in terms of things what we do generally, and in terms of what we do anyway in any debt negotiation, is you're trying to say, look, let's just talk, guys. Let's just talk. Keep it sensible. No, they can't shove their property. No, you can't go and knock their lights up because your courts aren't up to speed. And but the banks there in Spain, and to not so much in Cyprus, do a bit in Cyprus, but that's a different ballgame again. But in Spain, it's definitely a bit of a fear and reticence of the bank to sort of decide what they want to do here. So it's a trigger. Then we've got estate agents, bless them. They're I would suggest they're selling little if nothing this year. Is that how you'd see it panning out this year?
Well, like I say, in markets where there's local demand,
yes,
there and people have, someone started doing some building work on the far side of this square. I hope it's not interfering with the
It's audio. A good sign. No, let them carry. It's a great sign.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. At least someone's doing something.
Absolutely.
With local demand and people's stage of life, they have to change homes. They have a new child for whatever reasons. There is local transactions because it's not such a sort of it's not just discretionary spending. Whereas the second half, the foreign buyers is much more a question of discretionary spending and also limitations on access and so on. So local agents with enough local business, I think they're doing stuff. But on the coast where there is talk of, there's nothing like the upbeat positive spin you'll get on things from estate agents.
Yes.
And I love them for it.
Absolutely.
So it's always difficult to know for sure, but it's difficult to imagine that there's people making a healthy level of sales at a time like this in coastal resort areas where the buyers are abroad and can't even get to Spain or are having difficulty getting to Spain and wondering about the restrictions on travel in the future. And it's a discretion. It's not an essential purchase. They can put it off or just abandon the plan, and nothing will really happen. So it's really different. But I would expect it's really tough going right now to make. From what I'm told from Rightmove and from agents themselves, there's a lot of inquiries. There's an interesting level of inquiries, which is people doing searches online and making inquiries online, but that's got to translate into sales because otherwise it's a cost. And that's where to what extent that it's a conversion from inquiry to visit to sale at that level, I don't know. And I think it's just too early to tell how it's all going to pan out. But I think it must be very tough right now.
Yes. I saw you had a recent interview and discussion with Remax. I didn't catch the gentleman's name. The chain of estate agents. I think he was one of the first commentaries you got in terms of the potential effects of COVID-19.
Yeah, I didn't actually talk to him, but this was reported in the Spanish press. I picked up on it. But yeah, so that was one. The president's Remax in Spain. Remax is a big franchise of estate agents. I think they have hundreds of franchisees around Spain, and he was talking about sort of 10 to 20% discount, and I think mainly referring to the local market. And that was quite a bearish forecast. I've seen lots of others. In fact, I'm doing a spreadsheet of forecasts from different, like CBRE, from the IMF, from all different sources, and they go from sort of 3%, -3%. No one's forecasting any increase, any price increase this year, but they go from sort of 3% to and in a survey I did of 600 people, both all types of players, buyers, owners, sellers, estate agents, there was the general consensus there was sort of 10% plus, and I think a lot of people expecting sort of 20, 30, 40% in the resort market, but they don't know. Nobody knows, so it's just like gut feelings.
I think there's going to be a correction, and again, it's the different styles of properties, and almost the thing. It goes back to basic pricing. It's almost we're at the stage at the minute. If you've got to sell at the moment, that's when you're going to take the whack on the price. And again, the different markets. Barcelona will come back because it's such a cosmopolitan city, as will Madrid. But if you've got limited markets and you've got to sell, which comes back slightly to the thing I was raising about the demographic there. In terms of your plans, Mark, obviously we spoke about, I think a couple of months ago, right? I know you've had a few problems and everything else in terms of the lockdown. But you were looking at developing a model, almost like a subscription model in terms of, is that going to be information-led, basically, or how is that going to work?
Yes. No, I'm going to, when I get round to it, and it'll most likely now be in September after the summer. I've always produced a lot of research and analysis for free.
Yes.
That is unsustainable. I think I value the content I produce, and I can see that thousands of people also value it, because if you read something, you must value it, because your time, especially as you get older, this is something that becomes more and more. When you're young, time is abundant and you don't seem never scarce, but as you get older, time is the thing that gets scarcer and scarcer. So if I'm reading anything now, I'm very picky about what I read, because I'm not going to waste my time. No, reading stuff that I don't see value in. And so if you read something, if you spend your precious time on it, it must be worth something to you. You must value it. And I'm going to be producing a certain amount. That will still be it'll be about 30-40% of my content will continue to be freely available. But I'm going to produce spend more time on analysis, and never forget this is a totally untransparent market. As you guys know, the Spanish property market, the transparency is the big issue. Information is very valuable in a market with no transparency. So I'm going to make a big effort to really add value on information, and a certain amount of that will be restricted content, will be premium content where people, I haven't quite decided whether it'll be if you can wait a week and get it all for free, or if you want to get it straight away, there'll be a small modest subscription fee. But the time has come to put a subscription model onto my content.
Absolutely. Again, not as I say, not overpricing, but you, like I said at the beginning, your commentary is nearly definitive. It's it's good advice, and I think. And in terms of when it gets to estate agents, so I haven't put there when it comes to us, we're going to be subscribing because we need that. We need that. You need to be on the forefront. I think estate agents, they may be struggling, but they need to have the backdrop to their own market. It's a bit like our guys in marketing. They're very good. They catch up with everything. We take the 3-minute digest every day at the Times. Information is going to be absolutely all, and data obviously.
Yeah, but the information, data, and making sense of it. These are all things which this is what I spend all my time of my work available to me doing. Yeah. And people who own a house in Spain or want to buy or who are looking to sell, they don't have the time. I've been doing this for 20 years. It's like they can't. It's just much easier to get their answers from me. And another thing about a subscription model is when you're being all of those guides, you must have seen there's many places where they offer you a free guide to buying property in Spain. So anything that's a free guide is like you are the product. You just don't know.
Absolutely.
So I think that I'm much more comfortable with the people who are getting the value. Is either someone's paying you to write it like a developer or an agent, in which case you have to take into account their interests, or the person reading it is the only person whose interests you're taking care of, and in which case they need to pay you for what you're providing, which is a standard model that's been working for forever. I just need to introduce
your independence is absolutely sacrosanct. That's the thing. We work on the basis when we work on the debt in the UK here in terms of particularly the SME market. I have a mantra anyway. It's independent professional insolvency advice, which is a bit of a mouthful, but the most important thing is the word in there is the independent and professional. We're not selling them anything. We create a solution. Then you shouldn't need selling. If people can't see the value, that's a different thing. But again, going back to your status and independence, and I think have you any idea on your model what you're going to be charging a month, or is it euros? Or?
Modest. I'm not going. I need to do more work on it, but it'll be the kind of it'll be the usual thing, less than the price of a cup of coffee in Starbucks for a month.
But that's exactly it. And then the value comes from that, and how it's used. That's the key there. But it's so we're going to be using and we will promote it, because obviously that in terms of what we do as marketing, it's not just sell. It's also creating. We try and create some half decent content, get that out to, and yes, you want to sharpen the roofs if we do a good job, but it's getting more and more information out there. It helps people make and you want informed decisions. You have a solution. So if your subscription model brings a solution that they can decide, right, that's right for us, wrong for us, and or what we do, like I said, you shouldn't need selling. We put an economic value. You'll put an economic value in what you do, and I'd respectfully suggest it needs a bit more than a coffee, but that's you.
No, but it will be for consumers, for people who are for the kind of segment that's my readership who own a house in Spain. They have one interest and value that they will place on keeping an eye on the market, but estate agents and professionals in the business will have another value, and they need a certain different type of concept. So I'm actually going to be segmenting my readership into different groups with different kind of models for them. So we'll see. I mean, it'll be after September, but it'll be in a very interesting moment for interesting and challenging time. I think after the summer, the full impact of the lockdown and the of COVID, I think, are going to just take time. Apart from the initial shock, and that's going to put a lot of people into distress, into liquidity problems straight away.
Absolutely.
But I think they're the first line of sort of casualties of this affair. And then, but there'll be other lines as the full consequences become clear.
Luke Johnson, who writes in the Sunday Times business section, when this started, he came up with the phrase, which is, unfortunately, you suffer with COVID-19, but he said there will be companies, to use the vernacular, companies that had, and this will be the same with properties and property, that had pre-existing conditions prior to this. If you're a business and you're struggling, you're toast now. But unfortunately, it's going to bring quite a few good people back into play here, especially business. You got Willie Walsh the other day of BA talking about not flying a plane and having the fleet they have and everything. They still burn 20 million of cash a day, 600 million a month. Their reserves, Len McCusker, the union guy, was going to be, the last balance sheet had 1.5 billion. That's less than 3 months cash burn. And it's so I need you. I don't know if ever you saw the lottery when it was on in England, but it used to be, they used to have a lady, very strange, they used to come on, Mystic Meg, and she used to predict the numbers, right, Stucklin. You've got her on your corn here. What are your sort of short and medium term projections, roughly, just in terms of what we do and the coastal market, if you like, and the Brits and the Irish buying their second homes? What do you see short term, medium term ish?
Well, I'm generally pessimistic. I mean, I'm conservative and pessimistic in whenever I look at in all markets.
Yes.
And maybe that's a failing, because you fail to take advantage of opportunities that present themselves. But still, it's like it's being cautious. Let's say cautious.
Mm-hmm.
And I just. Nobody knows what's going on in this situation because it's so fluid and there's so many massive uncertainties at play.
Mm-hmm.
But I just can't see how that can end up happily for there will be, of course, winners and losers like there are in every crisis.
Sure.
But some people will be who they've got liquidity and they'll be able to buy great bargains in the process. Like happened last time, there was a massive, an amazing opportunity to buy prime Spanish property in the previous in the previous crisis, which was the financial crisis. You could buy, just for example, Barcelona. You could buy prime Barcelona, central, so the Barcelona's equivalent Mayfair, for below replacement costs, which meant that it implied that the land was free.
Yes.
And that was an opportunity that lasted for a short while, for a year or two. But now, of course, long gone. And I don't think that's going to happen this time round in prime markets where there's deep and liquid markets like cities like Barcelona, Madrid, Valencia, and Palma as well, just because people are too, they're more savvy this time round. And it's not a financial crisis, at least it's not yet.
No, absolutely. Because on that, Mark, we use the word fluid there, which is strange, but it's right in that properties are on a standalone are very illiquid assets. So hard, it's hard to cash, and in terms of the backdrop. But what did stem from the previous crisis? I think it's going to a little bit of work we're doing in Spain and in Cyprus. It's definitely happening in Cyprus. Is there's a lot of cash in the world, QE everywhere, quantitative easing. Mm-hmm. We've got Rishi here, and the Chancellor here, right, throwing out billions like it's confetti. And the world has got a lot of cash. We've got more or less zero interest rates here. I think it's going to be, I think it'll come, that's why it was almost like a loaded question when I said short term obviously has this thing. Medium will have its also issues, but I think longer term it's going to be good because the funds are out there, rightly or wrongly, to mop up this garbage, if you like. And it's a bit like, so Cyprus, for instance, big loan sales going on. I could see the likes of Sabadell, Bankia, and the likes selling the older tattier loan books to get things going again.
Right.
I think that will be a saving grace in the long term. Values, it's where it sits until you start to get those entries into the market by those sort of guys.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. Your point about the loan books being sold, like really, beaten up, dog-eared loan books. Presumably, the people who are buying them are really kind of bottom fishers looking for
absolutely
to squeeze them hard, and that would mean that I mean, because Spain took a very long time to get around to dealing with all of this bad debt, and I think Ireland, for example, is in contrast dealt with it much quicker. With setting up its bad bank and the fund for processing and wringing it out, where Spain, as usual, dragged its heels, put its head in the sand, and it just took, let's say, 5 or a decade longer, and we're nowhere near the end. But so this crisis is coming on top of a previous crisis that wasn't really worked through. But I presume that there's a lot of foreigners who bought homes who invested in off plan or whatever back in the between 2000 and 2008, who have walked away, who think they've walked away from their debts a long time ago, and haven't heard anything from the lender, and then all of a sudden they're going to get a call out of the blue, and it might even be people who have inherited the children of people who invested. Whereas, because some bottom feeders got the loan book now, and they're going to work through it and squeeze it and see what they get.
We learnt our trade, if you like, about 12 years ago. We've been here in Belfast, and what you've got is with the loan book scenario. We've got at any one point we've got typically 350, 370 clients on. I'd say about 70 of those are legacy debts, if you like, from the last financial crash. So you do get the loan sales through, but they take the time. And I think in Spain, so the main protagonists here in Ireland have been Cerberus, the three-headed dog, and that carry on, right? Okay, regularly having a skirmish with them. And I think they've got their own format there in Spain. I can't pronounce, is it Hoy? How they pronounce it there?
Yes, Oya Real Estate. The Cerberus Spanish real estate division, which they took over from one of the Aya Real Estate.
Apologies for my pronunciation, but I think there'd be pretty big players this time around, and also the banks, the delinquent debt guys in particularly in Andalusia, where we know it very well, they've had enough trying to tidy up garbage from the last time round. That's that, and I think that's, and when you get the loan sales through, they're called vulture funds for a reason. To go back to what you said, they were steal it for nothing. The other side is they turn very quickly and quite nastily on the creditors, on the debtors. There,
they can be very intimidating, I guess, because it's a very asymmetric relationship, as you guys will know very, very well. I mean, they'll be dealing with someone who the debtor has little experience in this, and all of a sudden you get a call from a very well prepared debt collector who can make they can use a language and the law too much, and really they can intimidate a lot of people, even if people who might, if they just stood their ground and said, I'm not paying anything and you can come and get me, I'll see you in court or whatever, they might
absolutely. So they're very good at overcoming the jurisdictional issues. So for instance, so say you said somebody bought somewhere in a not very desirable golf development, we call it, and say they fled, left it, and it's accumulated, say, £150,000 bill in Spain, euros, whatever you want. If you come to England in that time, particularly in property value, so for instance in London and say the M25, the value shot up. So suddenly you're of wealth. You can have diddly squat in the bank, but suddenly you're very asset rich. That's what they'll focus on. And they will take no prisoners, because it's off targets, and they can overcome the jurisdictional side. They'll do whatever they have to do. They sit there for the long game. They've got their models, and they work, and that's how they're successful in what they do. Whether you agree with the ethics or not, that's neither here nor there. That's a commercial deal they've taken.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. This new situation with this pandemic, which is going to have an impact on the market in terms of transactions and therefore on capital values. To the extent that there was a recovery, because obviously if you have a debt in Spain and the asset depreciated, the asset fell in value, and to the extent that there has been a recovery in value, reduces the loan to value for those people who are still servicing their debts, they want to get out of negative equity. That's the goal, you know. And, and if the trend is that way, and then they can sell and just basically wash their hands, you know, the whole thing washes its face, then that's great. But there's some people who are so deep in negative equity still that there was no way it was not going to come back. That situation wasn't going to change, and COVID just makes that worse. So so that group, it doesn't really matter. I mean, this doesn't make it easier, but there was they just had to get out of that situation. If they were uncomfortable, they wanted to get out of it, they just have to deal with it and not ever hope to be bailed out by a recovering house prices.
Yeah.
But then there's a new group who, you know, there's obviously going to be some people, and I've been contacted people who were doing fine until March, and all of a sudden, well, they've been furloughed, or now they're staring into the barrel of unemployment, and they're for no fault of their own, obviously, they can't, you know, paying the Spanish mortgage is not one of the priority.
No, absolutely. But it's that sort of thing. It's a reset button, isn't it? The whole thing here. When people have to look at their priorities. I said it half jokingly, but I cleared out my direct debit, so I got rid of Spotify because I'm not as young and trendy as I thought I was. No need to listen to too much music. And but in terms of that, we encourage people, no matter what they do. I don't care if they don't come up with it, but do something. Don't sit there and contemplate your navel. You know, either have a plan that you're going to do it in 3 years' time, and one way or another, you're going to have to meet the mortgage because, you know. I was saying that the world is awash with institutional cash, but even prior to COVID, it wasn't a great place. It was okay, but it wasn't a great place. And a lot of people living, you know, on the paychecks. You know, it gets tight and everything else. So I say it's always to take. So that's why I was coming back to you, Mark, in terms of that. Not trying to flog your product, right? But be aware of what is going on. That's where I'm saying your subscription model in terms of that product you're looking to bring has got to be a go-to. If it is the price of a coffee times 12, you know, the information you get from it, and independent information is going to be absolutely essential. Mark, I'm going to let you go in a minute because I know you're very close to your siesta time and they're in the heat and whatever you have to do in the afternoon and whatever.
If cool. Only, Terry, if only.
No, you fully embrace it. Mark, we met 4 years ago. And I was your nationality, you're part Swiss, is that right?
Yeah, my father was Swiss, so I'm half Swiss, but I've been brought up completely in the British system of education. I mean, I was born in Kenya and grew up in Africa, and always through in a British or British educational system. My mother is English, and so but I've always been an expat. And when I came to Spain to do an MBA here in Barcelona, I met my wife, who's a local lady from Barcelona. She was on the course, and you know, so I stayed put because it's discovered it's a lovely city, and
very nice.
Didn't have any desire to. I've lived in lots of different cities in my life, and I found one city that I'm more than happy to stay put.
Very good. Well, I've been chatting away to you here and interviewing. Is there anything you'd like to ask me, or I know we're in sort of more regular contact now as we get our association going, but it's
yes. Well, I mean, in terms of, you know, you get to see. I mean, are you seeing in terms of the type of profile of clients that you help, of people who are running into financial distress and who they need to dispose of a property and a mortgage? It's because I think we all know that the banks, even Spanish banks, are presently open to sort of small scale tinkering with like an interest-free period or so just a capital repayment free period, or just interest only, or even like a suspension of mortgage payments for a limited period, just to get people over this particularly troubling time. But for the others who really need a much more radical solution, which is to get free of a debt and a mortgage and a property, I'm assuming, I just can't see any other way this is going to work out, that there will be a surge in people in that kind of position.
I think, unfortunately, when I say unfortunately, obviously it's good in terms of what we do, but it's still not the best backdrop to work. And the key here is, like I say, to take some action, but on the premise that know thine enemy. If the banks have their own pressures in Spain, particularly in Spain, Cyprus as well. They've got the NPLs are still far too high, and the banks there are turning on. The Bank of Spain is turning on their own. Before it was bail out, how much cash you need, guys. Now they're turning around. If you've got non-performing loans, the deposits that the main lenders there, the Sabadells, Bankiers, and the like, they've got to make larger deposits. That's going to restrict things. That's going to get them more aggressive. That said, it's sounding like a broken record. Control your own destiny. If you want to do something, go to the bank. Right? Don't take their first word for it. That's how we developed our business. We've now got a good legal team, financial team, and everything else that gives us support to be able to make those reasoned decisions, and massive dose of reality. If, a number of estate agents we speak to, and they go, right, okay, well, no, we haven't got any clients for you, right? Okay, have you got anything you've not sold for a while? Oh, loads of those, yeah. You say, well, do you think you're maybe not selling for the right price? And they go, well, you get a lot. You go around and say, right, how much is this worth? And they go, well, no, what do you know, the sales patter, the estate agent says to the client, what do you think this is worth? 150, right? Okay, why is it worth 150? Because I owe 150, so it's got to be worth 150. And you go, it's not solving the issue, guys. That reality hopefully will come as we go through this. Mark, I'm going to just for a little bit of lightness here, I'm going to a quick fire round. A couple of personal ones, not too personal. Yeah. First off, who cut your hair during lockdown?
Who cut my hair?
Yes.
Nobody. Luckily, I'd had a very short cut just before it started, and I managed to last through. I had on the Monday when lockdown broke, I got an appointment with our barber around the corner, and he goes as like one of his first clients. Exactly the same.
There's a great thing yesterday. A man was saying that all men are going to go to barbers. Go, no, too busy. It's going to be like that for a while. Another quick one. Is your wife Catalonian or Spanish?
Well, she's both. She's
all right.
Both.
Okay. Yeah, it's good. Real Madrid or Barcelona then?
Barcelona.
Absolutely. And then final one, what is your favourite form of social media?
I guess, maybe WhatsApp. I've decided Twitter is like a sewer.
Absolutely.
It's a human sewer.
Absolutely. And keyboard warriors are plenty.
Yeah, and I just can't bear to look at it anymore because it's just so full of sort of bile.
Absolutely.
And not directed at me because I hardly do. I follow people on.
You're not
Twitter
trying hard enough, Mark.
No, apparently not. And then so maybe Instagram. No, not Instagram, but LinkedIn. LinkedIn is quite. It's a business. It's more business to business, but it's quite serious. It's a bit less spammy and less kind of.
I think that's underrated at the minute, what that can do for business in LinkedIn, especially again in terms of the days we're in. The new one, if you're not fussed on Twitter, is Parler. Apparently, that's where the non-shouters are going.
Yeah, I've heard about it, but I've heard that it's an alternative to Twitter's inbuilt left-wing bias, which could be a valid reason. All of them are going to be
overtaken
with the same fleas at the end of the day because I think when you have this platform where people can, where ordinary human interaction, which is tempered by face-to-face contact, you feel people aren't so inhibited on these platforms. I think they'll always all suffer from the same problem sooner or later. So I think we should be, people should, and this is a struggle with small children because it's very easy for small children to take screens and devices are very addictive.
Yes.
But they're not good for you, really. I think, the amount of time, the attention that you give to these things in a day, you've really got to take care not to give too much time. You want to be out for a walk. Go for a walk is much better than looking at Twitter.
Absolutely. Literally brain numbing, isn't it? Mark, thank you very much for your time. Can I end it there? Because you've got a little somebody in the background joining in. That's good. But no problem at all. It's not one of those moments. That's good.
I was thinking, oh no, my children are already back. This is
no, that's good. Perfect. No, perfect timing. Thanks for your time, Mark. Right, I'll be in touch.
It was a pleasure talking to you, Terry, and I'm sure we'll have another chance before long.
Good luck. Stay well. Stay safe. Love to your family. Good luck.
Thank you. Bye, Terry.
Thanks, then. Bye.